Ewan MacLeod was born in a small, windswept village at the edge of the Scottish Highlands, where the mountains met the sea and the cold pierced every corner of the homes. His father was a shepherd who worked from dawn until dusk tending sheep on rocky slopes, and his mother spun wool by the dim glow of a peat fire. Ewan grew up barefoot in winter, his fingers red and cracked from cold, and he learned early that life demanded more than wishes. It demanded effort, and relentless effort at that. He watched his father collapse one winter from exhaustion and never rise again, leaving the family with nothing but a tiny shack and scraps of wool to sell. Hunger was constant. Fear was constant. But even in the darkest nights, Ewan felt a spark within him, a sense that his life could not end in despair, that there was something more beyond the hills and the cold waters. As a child, he collected driftwood from the cliffs, selling it to the fishermen to earn pennies. He helped repair nets, swept the floor of the tavern where travelers drank, and ran errands for anyone who would spare a coin. Each night, he sat by the peat fire listening to stories brought by wanderers who passed through the village, tales of cities bustling with trade, men who had turned nothing into kingdoms of wealth, and ships carrying treasures from distant lands. He devoured every word and wondered if he could ever escape his small, frozen world. When he was 15, his mother fell gravely ill. The village doctor could do little, and with no money to hire help, Ewan made the hardest decision of his life. He left her in the care of neighbors he barely trusted, promising to return with the means to save her. He set out for the nearest port city, walking for days through hills, rain, and snow, carrying only a small satchel of bread and a scrap of wool for warmth. The city was overwhelming. Smoke rose from chimneys, horses clattered across cobblestone streets, merchants shouted over one another, and the air was thick with salt, coal, and the smells of countless kitchens. Ewan's heart pounded, but he did not let fear root him to the spot. He asked for work everywhere. He carried crates at the docks, scrubbed floors of inns, and ran errands for anyone who would hire him. Most ignored him. Some laughed at his thick Highland accent and ragged clothing. A few tried to cheat him of the little coin he earned. Nights were spent in alleys or by the harbor, shivering and hungry, whispering to himself that this was only the beginning, that the world had a place for those who refused to give up. One day, while cleaning debris at a shipwright's yard, Ewan noticed the men struggling to lift a massive timber beam into a ship. The ropes were tangled, and several men grunted and cursed. Without thinking, Ewan grabbed one end of the rope and with a calculated rhythm helped maneuver the timber safely. The foreman, a broad, grizzled man named Malcolm, watched him. "You've got sense," Malcolm said, his voice rough. "Most lads your age would have fallen flat on their face. Come back tomorrow. I'll find you proper work here." That moment changed everything. Ewan worked from dawn to dusk, learning how ships were built, how timbers were chosen, how ropes were measured and knots tied. His hands bled, his back ached, his sleep was broken. Yet, for the first time, he felt capable, alive, and that small spark in his chest grew into a flame. He studied the ships, learned the routes of merchants, and listened closely whenever a sailor spoke of distant lands, of fortunes made in trade, of men rising from nothing, because they saw opportunity others ignored. Years passed. Ewan grew stronger and smarter. By 19, he had saved enough to buy a small patch of land outside the city, where he began experimenting with building small boats and repairing the hulls of merchant vessels. Business was slow at first. Some laughed at a Highland boy trying to compete with established craftsmen. Many doubted his abilities. Yet Ewan worked tirelessly, often sleeping on the floor of his workshop beside the tools, drawing designs late into the night by candlelight, learning from every mistake, every splinter, every failure. One winter, a merchant came seeking a specially designed fishing boat that could withstand the harsh northern waters. Other craftsmen refused the challenge, saying it was impossible, that the waves were too strong and the timber too weak. Ewan accepted. For weeks he labored tirelessly, adjusting the design, testing small models, bending and shaping the wood with skill and precision. When the merchant saw the finished boat, he was astounded. It sailed faster, sturdier, and safer than anything he had seen. He paid Ewan handsomely and promised to bring other merchants to him. Word spread. Ewan's name became known along the docks and markets, a Highland boy who could build boats that defied storms. He reinvested every coin into better tools, more timber, and hiring young men willing to learn. Slowly, his small workshop became a thriving shipbuilding business. By 25, he had contracts with merchants across the northern coast. His employees, once skeptical, respected him for his fairness, discipline, and relentless drive. But success did not come without trials. Rivals attempted to sabotage his yard. Fires destroyed parts of the workshop. Storms sank partially completed vessels, and debts occasionally piled higher than he could pay. Each time, Ewan confronted the problem rather than flee. He rebuilt the yard from the ashes, learned to protect his materials, and improved every design. Each setback sharpened him, forged him, made him faster, smarter, and unyielding. By 30, Ewan had become one of the most respected shipbuilders along the coast. His workshops employed dozens, his boats sailed to distant harbors, and his name carried weight in every merchant house. Yet he never forgot the village that had birthed him, the cold nights, the hunger, or his mother's frail hands. He sent money home, built a proper cottage for the villagers, and offered apprenticeships to boys who reminded him of himself. One evening, standing on the harbor, watching a fleet of ships he had built glide through the sunset, Ewan whispered to himself, "This is the life I promised, not because I was lucky, but because I refused to stop, refused to complain, refused to be smaller than I could be." And whenever anyone asked how a boy from nothing rose to this position, he would say, "The world will push you down. Hunger, cold, insults, fear, they are relentless. But you must be more relentless. Learn, work, endure. Stand taller than your fears. Every day you refuse to quit, you rise. That is all the difference." Ewan MacLeod's story became legend along the northern coasts, not because he was born rich, not because he was talented in ways others could not match, but because he was disciplined, brave, and determined. A boy who once shivered in a broken cottage became a man whose hands built ships, whose mind solved problems no one else could, and whose heart remembered the value of every struggle. He proved that where you begin is not where you must end. Every hardship is fuel. Every setback is a lesson. Every day you continue is a victory.